RV Renovation Nation. Welcome to the New Look RV Renovation Podcast,
where we want to empower and entertain RV renovators with relevant information, ideas, and stories that'll help you give that RV a new look.
We're your hosts, April and Derek.
And if you're enjoying these episodes, please make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube.
On this episode, we're talking with Sarah Lemp of the All Things with Purpose blog.
She also literally wrote the book on Camper Renovation.
She's one of the OG RV renovators.
We discuss with her budget-friendly renovations, how to approach pricing a renovated RV, and we even find out why she got to go to Facebook headquarters.
So what are we waiting for? Here's Sarah. Welcome to the podcast,
Pretty
Sarah.
good.
We're so happy to have you here with us today.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited.
So you're a busy lady, you got a lot of projects going on all the time. One of the big ones, it seems like, is your blog, the All Things with Purpose blog. Can you kind of explain a little bit about what that's all about?
So it started, can't remember how many years ago, over maybe going on 12, as kind of like my way of, as a stay-at-home mom, something just to do and connect with other people outside my house. It started with just sharing DIY projects that I was working on, little things here and there, Disney World, money-saving tips, things like that. And it's kind of, as the years have gone on, it's changed and grown with my life. And now I would say it focuses predominantly on travel and camper renovating, budget-friendly ways for your family to travel together, and camping being one of those best ways to do that. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, what we talk about on All Things with Purpose.
Well, this is special because you literally wrote the book on camper renovation, and we definitely want to dive into that more. But before we do get into that, we'd love to hear kind of how you found your way into renovating campers.
Yeah, so it started again as a dream to just do something with my family. At the time, we had 3 young kids, and I had grown up camping. My husband had off and on. His experiences weren't as happy as mine. I have fond memories of camping. His were more like, yeah, it was okay. It was a small blip in his childhood. Wasn't necessarily interested in revisiting, but I figured, we're living on a small budget. This is a fun way for us to get out and go places, and makes it more affordable. And I fell in love originally with the idea of a vintage camper. And I started at the time, I think that vintage trailer renovations have maybe been around probably the longest. That concept, it grew maybe originally first because there was such a big following of people that were restoring vintage trailers, kind of like classic car restoration. So I was finding a lot of that originally, but not a lot of other RV renovators at the time. There was just a few individuals that I had found, but most of it was discovering these adorable vintage trailers on Pinterest, and I became obsessed. And I was just picturing our family going out in this super cute little vintage trailer, and it was just going to be great. It was going to be an inexpensive way for us to travel, and it was going to be adorable. And I fell in love with the idea of glamping. And at the time, we didn't have any money, but I had this idea, and it was kind of a dream. I hadn't really thought about it, seriously. I just kind of pinned a million pictures and told my husband about it one day. And he surprised me and started looking. And at the time, this was before, I believe, Facebook Marketplace existed. So it was Craigslist is where we found everything.
That's the old days, huh?
Yeah, right? Back in the old days.
That's when you had to walk to school in 10 feet of snow. And
Yep. Yeah. So he found this camper on Craigslist and said, well, what do you think about this? Let's go see it. And it was $1,700. It had huge gaping holes in the ceiling where they're just, the fan or the light fixture or the ceiling light was gone, and holes in the sides where pieces were missing, and dead rats. And
oh my gosh,
it was just bad. And I saw that and was like, well, this is it. We can do this. This is how much money we have saved up. Let's get it. And we can do this. And he was like, after seeing it, kind of thinking, oh, maybe this isn't a good idea. And I was just envisioning the end goal of what it was going to look like. And I caught that vision. I was getting really excited about it. our friends and family at the time had never heard of this camper renovating thing. They were like just dumbfounded. They were like, why on earth would you do this? We just do not understand. You basically just made the worst financial move in your life. Why on earth would you do this? And that just fueled my, my desire to prove them all wrong and to do this renovation and to wow them and to show them that this could be done. And I learned as I went, and I Googled stuff and looked up YouTube videos and asked local professionals and figured it out as I went, paid for little things as we went. And it ended up just being this like beautiful, life-changing experience for us. We loved it. We loved owning a vintage trailer. But then as our family grew, sadly outgrew our tiny little 16-foot vintage trailer and knew we needed to expand to something else. So tearfully, we put it up for sale.
So, I mean, that's a big project. Were you already a big time DIYer? Would you have considered yourself handy prior to taking that on? Like, what sort of background did you bring into that first renovation?
Yeah, so I would say that I was always motivated to save money. Again, living on a small budget, I'm a very much I will try anything. I'll look it up. I'm self-motivated. If I don't know how to do something, I'll watch somebody else. I'll ask questions. I'll learn how, especially if it'll save me money. So, like I've been cutting my family's hair for years and, doing DIYing or, any little project around the house, I'll learn how to do it and I'll do it. Obviously, I'm not starting out, not expert level at anything, but I just figure it's an adventure and I wanted to try. And I figured a camper that size, especially at the time, was a great place to learn it because I was maybe more confident to tackle some issues that I wouldn't have done on a home necessarily at the time as I was learning. So I didn't necessarily have specific skills to camper renovating. My husband's dad is a builder. My dad was a big DIYer. He learned how to do everything from books, took that and ran with it.
That's awesome. So you're a self-described budget-friendly renovator. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Yeah, so I guess for me, my motivation from the beginning was always, it started with a desire for our own family to have something inexpensive to do together. Mm-hmm. And I think that translates to how to share with other people. I want to see it be something feasible for people, and I want it to be attainable. And so I realized, without downplaying like everything that goes in, because, I make it sound amazing, and it does. Like, obviously, when you look on Instagram, it looks amazing and beautiful and perfect. And obviously, there's a lot of work. So I don't want to ever downsize the level of expertise that does go into a really quality renovation. But I think what I do is more, where can you start? What can you do to make it attainable for you to do it? How can you start with something within your means? Don't, start with whatever you have saved up. That's where you start. I'm a big advocate for purchasing something with cash, getting something small. That's what we did. We started small with this, the beat up vintage camper, and then slowly kind of worked our way up as we flipped more RVs. You start where you are at, you learn as you go.
Yeah, and this podcast, largely one of our missions is to just help empower, DIYers, RV renovators, and that's really the message right there. Like, don't get hung up on the things that you can't have. I mean, you're saying like get out there and do it. And, if you need to keep things on a tighter budget than somebody else, that's okay. At least you're moving forward and you're taking it on and learning.
Yeah, and I'm not doing the high-end renovation work. There are people that are doing beautiful renovated RVs, specifically probably for people that are going full time. What I've done more so is just, helping people that want to use it for their family to travel in, and want to work within their means of what they have. What can they do? How do we make it possible to get out there?
Along those lines, what are a couple tips that you'd pass along to people that you feel like are good, maybe good entry points, or they're just good renovation tactics to take on a budget?
Obviously you don't want to sacrifice safety. you want to make sure what you're getting into is structurally sound. You don't want to be driving down the road with a safety hazard, and you've got to take all those things into consideration. Once you've established that you have everything sealed up, you're watertight, everything's structurally sound and good to go, I don't think you necessarily have to always rip everything out and replace it with something new. Obviously, a lot of renovators, our go-to thing is painting, and it's still one of the biggest, easiest, I mean, not easiest because it's time consuming and probably the most annoying part of the renovation, but it's probably one of the most inexpensive things and the best bang for your buck upgrades you can do to a renovation. So I always would encourage people to start there. I try to keep my renovations to under $2,000 is usually what I'm doing. That usually includes fixing anything that needs to be replaced, any kind of water damage. And I, try not to get into any more situations where it's that bad, like I did my first one where everything had to be gutted out.
Where it's a convertible, like that one was, the first one.
Yeah,
the roof was off.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I feel like that's where I was at that point in my life, and I've done that. I would rather not have to do that again. But, as far as getting, anything damaged, taken out and replaced, I'll always paint. Flooring, I think, is fairly inexpensive to replace. Painting the cabinets and updating the hardware. If my budget's really small, I'll try to paint the hardware, but I think that's one of the nice splurges would be to just update all the cabinet hardware, some kind of really nice backsplash or some kind of focal wall that's using some type of decorative technique. But just little things, it's such a small space. But yet at the same time, one of my things that I've loved about having an RV is the fact that I can afford certain things in my RV that I could never afford in a larger scale in my home. So there's definitely things that I've done in my personal RVs that I've yet to ever do in my home, with replacing larger things like the sink or the countertops, because you're talking such a small amount that you need.
Yeah, that's very true. I'm sure you've come a long way from that first renovation. Is there anything that stands out to you that you feel like you guys have really learned since then?
How to find water damage, how to spot it. I've learned a lot about electrical after doing that first one and bringing in experts in the field, friends that were experts in different things. They would come in and teach me. We've learned a lot about how to pull something safely, what different size things you can pull with different vehicles, and getting it so that it's towable. I guess those are some of the big ones.
How many renovations are you up to now?
I think it's around 12 or so. So it started, like I said, as just not wanting to necessarily do them as a business. It was, I'm doing this for our family, and now we're growing. So let's sell this one. Let's do another. And along the way, we've done a few different ones specifically for clients. I've done, design work where I've helped clients have them do the work, but I've given them the plan and coached them through it. And then also done different ones that our family has enjoyed and then turned around and sold when we wanted to try something else. So kind of a little bit of everything.
Have you had a favorite along the way?
Well, Gidget, the very first one, was probably always be my favorite.
Special place in your heart.
It is, yeah. And I still, now that we've got the biggest one we've ever had, because we recently bought new for the first time ever, and have had interesting experiences with that. And I'm actually considering selling that one now and downsizing. And my dream is to have another vintage model that was still big enough to accommodate our family. But I just love the charm and the character in the vintage models. And it's such a conversation starter. You go to any campground and people want to talk about it, and they stand around and want to share memories of when they owned one as a child, or, so I just love that about it.
I know recently kind of you touched on, you guys purchased a new RV, and we've got to talk to a lot of RV renovators about inspecting used campers for water damage. And I know you guys unfortunately have some issues with water damage in your new RV. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah. So going into it, I knew my in-laws have always had brand new RVs. And I've kind of watched some of the issues that they have had over the years, which were always shocking because I've always thought you're buying all, brand new, and yet you're
Yeah.
still running into problems. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind that even if you buy new, it's no guarantee you're not going to have something break on you, like whether it be the slide out gets stuck and is not going in, or you're discovering a leak. I kind of had it in the back of my mind. But this one, I guess it was at the height of last year when everybody was buying them, everybody was wiped out. And I had got this idea that we went ahead and sold the Class A RV that we had been using. And so we were desperate to have something else. I found the model. This was the exact model I wanted that had everything our family would need, even to be able to camp in it more long term. And I kind of just let my guard down and thought, this is great. I'm so excited. I'm starting fresh. I'm going to start with an RV that nobody else has touched. I'm not going to have to sanitize the entire thing and gut it all out to begin with.
With vodka, right? That's your secret ingredient?
Yes, yes. I can't remember where I even heard that originally, that somebody had told me vodka was like the best cleaner for foam. And because I guess it leaves no trace of any kind of scent, even, like where a lot of chemicals and a lot of cleaners do. It disinfects and then leaves no scent behind. So yeah, that's a tip. But yeah, I was just excited not to do any of that with this brand new RV. Let my guard down. I knew we were kind of going to a dealership that I hadn't really heard a whole lot about, but they were the only one that had this particular model left in stock. And so
Is this a travel trailer or a fifth wheel?
Yes.
Or? Okay.
This is a travel trailer. And we upgraded our vehicle to a Suburban with the right specs to be able to pull. And we were like, we have 5 kids. So with 7 of us, we kind of are maxing out. Like I knew, a lot of people move to a fifth wheel, but then they have to, with our amount of kids, they have to drive 2 different vehicles when they go anywhere. So I wanted the biggest trailer we could get that we could pull with the biggest vehicle we could get to hold all our kids.
Yeah.
So we did all this research. I found this trailer. This was the one I wanted. And I noticed that when I stepped into it there at the lot, that, that first step going in is always the one that tends to have problems anyway. But I stepped in and I felt like, okay, that kind of gave a little bit. There was a little bit extra springy. And I brought it up to the salesman and said, is that common? Is there something going on there? And he basically was like, oh, it's been sitting out here on the lot for a little while. So a lot of people have been in and out, and it's just kind of the lightweight flooring that they're using to make the models lighter weight tends to break down a little bit. So he kind of brushed it off. We went through the process they were going out of their minds. They were all crazy around there because it was so busy. Everybody's coming in wanting RVs and they don't have hardly any left. So the whole process was very rushed, very kind of chaotic, and basically pulled away. And as the weeks went on, we just started noticing, oh, that spot's getting more and more soft. It got so bad. I think we purchased in June or July. And by November, we were like, this is really bad. That's clearly got something going on. And took it into the dealer. They were like, yep. And this is bad because we can't just replace this one section. We have to replace the entire floor. So we're going to have to send it back to the manufacturer. So that's just been a new experience because
wow.
I'm so used to DIYing everything. I'm so used to being the one that I can do it. And I would normally, on an older model, just rip it out and do it myself. But when you're talking a new model and it's under warranty, it's kind of out of your hands. And you just kind of have to wait and have it sent away. And, they fix it and they're standing behind it and making it even better than it was, replacing and upgrading the flooring. But it's just a different experience when you're used to being able to just do it. And now we've, not had it for this many months. So it was a big learning experience for sure.
Yeah, I bet.
Do you have a design plan for when you have it, what you're going to be doing to it?
Yeah, so I had already started doing a few little things. This is the one that has darker wood cabinets, but because it was brand new, I've been so torn about whether to paint them or not. I've painted the walls and changed out curtains and changed out the furniture. I'm torn because now, like I said, I've got this kind of thought in my head that now I'm like, now that after we get it back and it's been completely redone by the manufacturer, I'm debating whether to sell it and downsize to something smaller. And then the question is, do I paint everything more and do more to it before selling it, or just sell it? So stay tuned. Anybody that's listening, there may be a travel trailer on the market soon.
Well, going into 2021, it seems like the demand for RVs isn't lightening up. So
right. Yeah. It's crazy.
That might be a good idea. Going back, like over all those renovations, have they all mostly been travel trailers? You mentioned you did a Class A also. Have you done some different genres?
So we've done a Class A and a Class C motorhome, and the rest have been travel trailers of basically different decades. Done the 50s and the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, just of mostly travel trailers.
When you did like those motorhomes, because we've never done a motorhome, like
Okay.
Do you feel like that's something you do again? Like how would you contrast those two kinds of renovations?
We went to the motorhome basically because at that point we'd already played the kind of the bigger and better game, basically, where we were like, we started small, sold it, bought something bigger, sold it, bought something bigger. And at one point my husband was like, I just really want to try a motorhome. Like that was what he had as a kid. He had that, that vision of driving down the road playing video games. And he was just like, I want to do that. That's what I want to do. That was his only memory of camping that he liked, was being able to drive down the road with his Nintendo and, the corded Nintendo and play video games while you're on the road. So we looked and found our first one was a Class C, and loved it. It's a different experience, but I feel like we've experienced all these different styles now, and the driving experience is slightly different with each of them. But we're basically have been kind of learning the pros and cons and which one he prefers to drive. So he kind of experienced the Class C, and then we just thought, let's try something a little bigger. So we went to a Class A and experienced that, and then now we've gone back to a travel trailer. But yeah, the motorhomes, on one hand, I think he liked how they drove a little easier than pulling a big trailer, but it's a different feel. It's a different experience. But our thing is, motors are a little bit more out of our wheelhouse. We had to bring in more experts into that and take it to professionals, because that's not something we can do personally. So it in that sense, I don't know that we would do another motorhome, because it's not something we can handle ourselves. And then it costs more money because you're taking it more places. So that would be the drawback to that. Plus, then when you go someplace, unless you're pulling a car, we did miss having a car to go places once we got to our destination.
And that's the reason we've kind of stayed away from them, is, we can change batteries and oil and stuff like that. But if the engine's broke, there's something going on in there, I don't know. I'm sure there's a YouTube video that would bring us up to speed, but
yeah, we were just like, that's one of those areas that we're going to stay out of and leave to the professionals.
So as you're doing all these renovations, you were kind of posting to the blog? Is that how you were sharing, or how were you sharing these, and how was kind of following kind of catching on? Can you talk about that?
As I went, I was each step of the way, I was just sharing what I was doing. And I think more and more people, as it's become more and more popular. And I don't think I ever would have realized that at the time, that this is what it would become. But, I think I just started sharing each step of the way. And then as my following grew from that, through whether it be, people finding my stuff on Pinterest or on Instagram, I think with each time I sold something, it became easier, because more and more people had been following with each model we were doing. And, then we'd put it up for sale and sell it super fast and start on the next thing. As that's gone, different people have reached out. I've done different interviews with different news outlets, and I've done a lot of stuff with Facebook Marketplace, because I predominantly buy and sell through there. So, I've worked with them a little bit. And
in what way? What do you mean by that?
So I was able to go out to, they brought me out to Facebook headquarters in New York to put on a presentation about RV renovating there. And they've just been really supportive, because they've seen that I've used it so much that they've really set me up with opportunities to talk with different people and share my experiences, kind of as a ambassador for using Facebook Marketplace, which is,
That's awesome.
So that's been fun. But just like little things like that have come up that I never would have thought would be opportunities that
Did
I'd
they
have.
share, like, I'm always telling April, I'm like, gosh, if I could just get the data on like what's being bought, what's being sold, like what are the most popular sort of like, is it a bunkhouse? Is it like something that's this length?
Oh
Like
yeah.
all that kind
Yeah.
of, data, they have it. Like, did
Uh-huh.
they open the book for you and let you look at all the numbers?
No,
No.
no, I've never even thought to ask that,
Oh,
but that would be
that'd be
really
so valuable.
interesting.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that would be. Yeah.
Well, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's a super cool opportunity.
How did the idea for the book come along then? Like when did you start thinking about that? And what was that whole process like?
I started off with this mom blog, and I started off just doing things for my family, and it's grown from there. And I think because that's where it's grown from, I think there came a point probably it's been over the last couple of years as the height of this camper renovating popularity has grown, that I have just gotten so many messages and questions. And there came a point where I was just like, I can't even keep up. And that's kind of caused it's caused me anxiety because I feel bad. I want to help people. I want to, the more people I could help and the more questions that I could answer, the better. I would feel better about that. But I was having so many messages pile up. It was causing like the stress in my life of knowing I was having all these questions that I couldn't answer. And so for me, part of the book was just, I saw, for one, I saw kind of an opportunity there where I'm like, I don't see that many other books out there about this, and just thought, well, if I could take as much of this stuff that's in my head as possible and put it into a book that would be more helpful to people, I could answer more of those questions and be more helpful. So that's kind of why that started. It was just another way of getting information out there and encouraging people and trying to respond to those questions that people had. And I'm excited that I'm seeing more and more RV renovators doing that, because I think there's such a need for good information out there, people that want to know how to do it right. And, we need more, man, the more courses and books we can get out there, the better of how to do it.
Agreed. And I know I've seen so many people reference your book, so I think it's been a really useful tool for so many. What was the process of writing the book like? Did that happen pretty quickly for you, or was it kind of a long work in progress?
I would say it was something that was worked on over a long time, but once I finally caught a vision for what it would be like, that's usually how I work. I think once I finally get really inspired by an idea, I just work like crazy to get it done. So I think that's kind of how the book was. It's kind of, it includes a lot of content that I've written over years of compiling it all together and then going through it over and over again. And it was like it's very nerve-wracking putting it out there. I was super nervous because there are certain things that, as renovators, right, that we agree on certain things. And then there's other things that are highly debatable. Everybody has their own way of doing it.
Right.
I wanted to write something that was going to be helpful, and I didn't want to touch on anything too controversial that people were going to totally bash and be like, I can't believe she's doing it that way. So it was really hard. And I was very, very nervous putting it together. That's where I guess the inspiration came in, when I realized, well, maybe I shouldn't be doing this totally by myself. I should be reaching out to the RV community. So I messaged a group of other RV renovators and said, okay, I want to put this out there, but I'd love your input. I want to promote you guys as well. And I'd love to know, what you think. Would you agree with all this information? Is there anything in here that you would be like, absolutely not, do not point people in that direction? And so that's been really fun. I've been so grateful to the group of women that have contributed to it, because it wasn't just added their extra info in there, but it also was their support, and kind of stamp of approval that we were giving out quality information. Even though there are some stuff in there, and I'm pretty blunt about saying, like, my exterior, that was probably the most controversial thing that I do is my exterior painting techniques.
How dare you use latex paint on yours?
Oh, right. Well, I've heard some very strong opinions about this from other renovators. I know people have strong opinions. I know people think it's ridiculous, but I guess that's where my mentality is. I'm not doing high-end renovations that I'm selling, for top dollar. I just want you to feel comfortable going on vacation. And if you've got a beat up, disgusting RV, from the 70s that looks like a mobile meth lab, then yes, by all means, please paint the outside with latex paint.
No, and there's so much good information in there. And like you said, especially for, people that are just really overwhelmed by the task at hand, like the project, if it's not something you have experience with, it's definitely a mountain to climb. And even when you do have experience, I mean, it's a lot of work. And so it's just so helpful to lay that out, almost in a step-by-step process. You cover like a lot of the major topics, and you you frame it that way. You say, this is what I've done. And I think you even literally say, this might not be the same way that someone else is doing it, but this is what's worked for me. And, always consult a professional, if it's electrical or, plumbing or that sort of thing.
Yes.
And so I think you're very forthcoming in that, and it's just good.
That's my disclaimer. Yes, for sure.
And then there's so many great pictures in the book too. I mean, you did a good job of mixing in all the pretty with the content.
Thank you. I just got a negative comment about that. Somebody that wrote a negative review that said this was just a picture book of fluff. It wasn't actually teaching me anything. Not what I expected, like 1 star.
Oh,
but yeah, other than
Karen.
that, right. I feel like for the most part, people have appreciated the pictures. At least I
definitely do. Yeah. And I think RV renovators are very visual people anyways, because they're taking something that doesn't look pretty and making it pretty. So pictures are very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of topics that you cover in the book. Like one of them that we thought about highlighting was the topic that can be widely disputed, amongst people is just like, how do you price a renovated RV? Everybody I think has a little different approach to this. And like you said, maybe some renovators are, they're DIYers and maybe they've just done a project or two and they're selling, what was their personal unit. And then there's people on the other end of the spectrum that are doing this full time and have done many, many renovations. And like you mentioned, maybe they're sparing no expense with the renovation. And so there's obviously a few different worlds colliding there, but you kind of want to walk us through like your thoughts on pricing a renovated RV?
I try to convey that I don't want to even put myself in the same category as renovators that are doing it are doing the more high-end renovation work for people that are either RVing full-time or are just looking for a higher end or a newer model that's been upgraded. That's really not the renovation work that I'm doing. I'm doing more of the budget-friendly end. And I don't want to take away from what they're doing at all because it's amazing. It's hard because what I'm also advocating for is that you are fixing something up for your family to use. Pricing it is really hard. I've seen in certain groups, I'll see this question get brought up quite often, where somebody will in a Facebook group, somebody will say, "Here's my RV. I would like to sell it. What do you think?" And there's always somebody who says, "You look it up online, see what it's actually worth." RVs don't hold their value. They don't appreciate like a home does. It's not an investment. You can't charge more for it just because it's renovated. There's still tons of people out there that say that and have no idea what they're talking about because clearly people, there's still a large group of people that don't want to have to DIY something themselves or don't feel like they have those skills to do it. And they want to buy something that's already been done. And so there's a lot of value in that, but it's also hard because it's a very labor intensive thing. And you put a lot of heart and soul into it. And unless you are doing a higher end RV and putting higher end quality materials into it, it's going to be really hard, I think, to get the price out of it that you really think in your heart you deserve for the amount of work you've put into it. So it is really hard to figure out how to price it. And especially the market has, obviously played with that more than even where we were a couple years ago. I would say you'd start with looking in your area. What are other RVs going for? what are the RVs going for that are similar in age and style to the one that you have, and then adding in upgrades. And I would say if you have done a quality job at renovating it, then you would add on several $1,000 from there, depending on what you've done. But I would say today, man, it's so hard to find things. The market is hot. People could definitely be getting top dollar out of their renovations. But if you have not done a quality job with it, if you've not followed the steps and prepped your paint correctly and looked for water damage, you just quickly went in and painted it and covered up damage and whatever, and then tried to throw it out on the market to flip it, you will be found out. Your reputation will not. Yes.
And we've seen our fair share of naysayers. Like anytime, we finish a renovation and put a listing up, there will be those people that'll be like, you could buy a new RV for this price or whatever it is. And I think a lot of that also comes down to that in the end, there's people that are fine living in a house that was built in, the 1950s and keeping the same decor, that's been there since then. And there's other people that value, a renovated home or, updated design and that sort of thing. So I think maybe, they're not necessarily the same customer.
Yes.
I guess we try to just sort of quickly frame it that way to some of those people. It probably doesn't change their mindset, but they definitely feel the need to like get that jab in there and be like, you guys are out of your mind.
I mean, there's still a huge group of people that believe camping it's not camping unless you're in a tent or you are roughing it. There should be nothing glamorous about camping. Camping doesn't need to be stylish. It does not need to look nice. So obviously there's a whole crowd of people with that mindset, or maybe with the mindset that they're fine with the camper that is ugly, like that's just camping. Or the same people that would say, why would you ever paint your cabinets white and your walls white? You're camping, there's all kinds of different opinions as far as camping goes and what you even would call camping and why you would do any of those things.
Well, and I think like you alluded to also with whether or not somebody did like a quote unquote proper job with the renovation, is that a lot of buyers of RVs already don't know what they're looking for. We see this on a firsthand basis. Like they don't know anything about water damage or, they don't really know like what they should be seeking out, especially when they're looking at a used or like you even said with a new RV, like some of these problems can exist. And so then on top of it, there's that conundrum where if you pretty it up and you paint it all and you throw in some nice pillows and stuff like that, it even puts like more blinders on in some sense, then they really, really don't see the underlying issues. And, I don't know that there's really like an answer to that, but it's just for a better world, trying to be honest to with people about the sort of work that was done and, with their family's safety in mind too. I think just trying to be upfront with that would be the quote unquote right thing to do, but there's no regulation. There's no way to regulate. I mean, there are inspectors, but most people, I don't think, get into that side of the process.
Yeah. And I always tell people, it's hard because unless you've peeled back every wall as a renovator, you may be missing something that honestly, it's not, that you didn't cover up purposely. Like we do our best to look for damage and to fix things that are there. But, with so many RVs leaking and water getting in somehow over time, especially with the older models, I try to share that with people that, it's a pretty common thing. I do my best to find it. I want to be upfront about that if I have found something, but there's always that chance there was a wall, that I didn't tear off and look behind and there might've been something. I always just try to be really transparent about that with people and try to get people to look for that. But yeah, there are a lot of, as this has grown, there's obviously a lot of new campers, people that have never gone camping, never owned an RV, never pulled anything. And so with selling through Facebook Marketplace, more having that one-on-one interaction with the customer, which, we experienced firsthand being for the first time buying through a dealer. They kind of did that. They also had us, we were required to watch a video beforehand, and they kind of went through a really quick safety spiel about how to operate everything. But we try to do that with each person that purchases one of our trailers. Even, we'll go through test drives with them. We'll try to go with them if they look it's crazy the amount of people that we have sold trailers to that have never pulled anything before. And we're like, oh, we really hope they make it home in one piece. Yeah. So if we can, we'll take them somewhere and have them, drive around a parking lot and get a feel for it, and share those safety tips. But yeah, lots of new RVers.
I'm backing up for a second, back to Facebook Marketplace, and maybe you have some answers on this, and maybe you don't. They brought you out to their home office, so I'm guessing that maybe you got some insight. Sometimes we get frustrated with like the lack of like listings that we get served, like on the buying end. Like the other day, there was a listing that was 5 minutes down the road, and we didn't get served it for like 24 hours. So of course it was gone. And then on the flip side, sometimes when we list on there, like we feel like maybe our listings aren't necessarily being served like broadly. Like if somebody types in camper and that's something we've identified in the title and the keywords or whatever, like it should come up. Do you have any kind of insight or extra information on best practices or ways to currently use Facebook Marketplace? I'm sure it's always evolving.
Yeah, it is. So, and I had the privilege of talking with several of the developers while I was there. And I know they've gone through a lot of changes since I was out there, and I've talked with them. This past year they've added in a lot of new features, and including the shipping options and stuff that are in there. And there's more and more people with like shops that are connected and stuff like that. So I know it's gone through a lot of changes. I will say I asked them this as far as does it go off of the same algorithm that Facebook does in general for pages and for things that are going to show up in your feed. And they said, yes, that there is an algorithm to it. So if you are listing something, the more attention that listing gets, the more it's going to be seen. And I think a lot of that is understandable in the sense that there's so many people listing stuff and they're wanting you to see whatever the algorithm sees as being the top stuff, So if you're listing something, the tip would be, you can pay to boost it, but the other thing would be just sharing it with friends and family, sharing it in multiple spots, hoping other people share it, asking your followers to like it and share it is a big one. But yeah, if I know that does have an impact on things that you're putting out there as far as, and there is a feature, I know I've had more and more people follow me on Facebook Marketplace. And I think you can encourage people to do that too, so that they, I think, get notified when you are listing things.
Yeah, I have noticed that lately as well.
I don't think we built it out, but there is like separate seller profiles.
Yes, there is. And I actually just recently got on there and thought, oh, I need to do more with this and add an actual image and stuff to this.
Those are some good points. So you have a book, a blog, and then you also started this t-shirt line recently too,
yes.
Which I think is cool.
I go through an outside printer that handles it all. It made it pretty easy for me to set them up, but I just kept, I really started again for myself. I was like, well, I want a shirt that says this, so I'm going to make it and then see if anybody else wants it.
Yeah.
So it's that slowly taking off, but but it was nice to just be able to make those an offer. I wanted something that said I've been renovating before it was cool, just because I thought there's been, such a rise in it, in popularity.
You're an OG.
Yes, that's a good one. I should do one. Oh, yeah. I'm always trying to come up with different things to put on there. I just thought that would be funny. And I was like, well, that doesn't exist. So I want a shirt that says that. And then I just want something, a couple other ones that people can wear with pride to announce that they are a renovator and that they take ugly RVs and make them pretty.
Yeah,
so,
I think they're great.
So I have a personal question. When is the Fearless Male Renovator shirt going to be released?
Well, is there a demand for it?
I'm feeling left out.
I could probably make that happen. I could. But it's interesting though that most of the people in the renovating business are female, or at least the face of most of the teams are female, and maybe their husbands are behind the scenes doing the work, but they're the ones that, the wife is the one running the Instagram account. So yeah, maybe you guys have been neglected for too long.
And so you also have a Facebook group, right? And then you offer some consulting or design services. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, so the Facebook group is, again, another thing that I just started a while ago as a way to interact and get questions answered, because I realized I can't do everything and I'm not able to keep up with the questions people are asking. I'm part of a couple different renovating groups on Facebook, but this one, I just wanted it to be a space where I was personally involved in it. And since starting, I've also brought on a few other renovators that are admins so that they can interact and share their more of an expert advice in those groups. And that's just a place to get like immediate answers. They're so great. I mean, you need a question asked or you need advice, an opinion on a paint color, like people, go there just to post stuff and get immediate answers from 50 other people that are in the trenches doing the same thing.
And is that free to join?
Yes, that is. I ask that you follow either on my blog or Instagram is one of the questions, but it is All Things Camper Renovating is the name of it. I want to say the link is actually like Facebook groups / Camper Renovating, I believe. But I link to that on my blog and on my Instagram profile. And then I do have design services that I have offered. I've currently closed the waiting list on that because I've just got so far behind that I've had to kind of pause that for now. But we'll be getting back and I will open that again at some point. I've just been so far behind. That's one of the reasons I was like, well, I'm really sorry. I can't do everything, but here is a book and here's a group. And,
yeah, I think you're doing plenty to contribute. Yeah. So you don't have to feel bad about that one. It's just, there's only so much headspace that one person can.
Yeah. That's what it is. Yeah. I've got all these ideas in my head and all these things that I want to do. And it kills me that I can't do all of them.
I guess so, Sarah, thanks for your time and all the information you've shared. If, anybody's out there and they haven't checked out the book yet, definitely should. Yes. But where can people catch up with everything that you're doing? Where can they find the book? Like what's the best methods for all of that?
Thank you guys so much. This has been fun chatting about all things RVs. You can find me on my website, allthingswithpurpose.com. On Instagram, I am Purpose Blog. And you can find my book on Amazon if you search for All Things with Camper Renovating. I'm sorry. If you go on Amazon, you can get the physical copy or the Kindle version. I am sold out of physical copies on my website, but on my website, you can get the ebook, PDF ebook version. And I do have a code for you guys. Ooh. For your listeners. It is New Look RV will be your code to get $5 off of the ebook on my website on allthingswithpurpose.com.
Well, thank you. I'm sure people will definitely run out and get that. That's awesome.
So when do you expect those to be in or like ready to ship again?
I'm not sure. They've been really popular on Amazon. Just the way it's set up, Amazon can get them out a lot faster. So when you buy it and you can get it through Prime. So I've been torn about whether to list them and ship them out myself anymore or let Amazon handle the physical books.
And just do the ebooks on your end. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Sarah. It was so nice to chat with you today.
Thank you, guys.
Keep up all the good work.
Fun. Thank you.
We are so thankful that Sarah is pouring so much energy into the RV renovation community.
And especially if you're brand new to RV renovation, her book can be a great tool. So be sure to take her up on that coupon offer and pick up a copy.
We want to thank everyone for listening and watching. These first few weeks since we've launched have been amazing.
And we love all the feedback, all the selfies of people listening in their car or out in the rig. And it really makes us feel like we're doing something that's helpful. And we look forward to bringing you so many more episodes with great guests and episodes in the future.
So until next time, don't be afraid to give that RV a new look.